Hi, today I'm going to be talking about spot rust repair. There's a few spots of rust on this van I'll show you, and we'll go through that. So here we have some rust, and it's around the bottom of the door, and I will be fixing that today. So you'll see a few spots there. So the first thing I want to talk about today is your safety gear. Safety gear is really important. You don't want to hurt yourself, get injuries, your lungs, respiratory, especially when doing repairs with paint and chemicals. Very important for future. You won't notice any effects right away, but in the long term you will have severe health effects. You could have severe health effects with your breathing and respiratory system, so you really want to make sure you protect yourself. So today I'm going to be wearing the safety glasses, and I'm protecting my head because I'm working underneath with dust and stuff landing on me. I'm going to be wearing a respirator. I could wear a dust mask. N95, any kind of a dust mask would work for what I'm doing here right now, grinding and just dust and particles flying. But I'm just going to wear my respirator because it's comfortable and it's good and I like it. So I'm going to wear that. So I also have some earplugs, and I'm going to be putting those in. Got my work gloves, and then I got my steel-toed shoes on. So that's the PPE I'm going to be wearing. So some of the tools I'm going to be using is an angle grinder. I have a grinding disc that I can use, and it just screws on from the back. Grinding disc. And then I also have an abrasive wheel that I could be using. The grinding disc will take off metal with the paint, so you have to be careful when you use that. The abrasive wheel takes off the paint and not really much of the metal. So those are the two differences. We want to take off a lot of metal when we're grinding like welds and stuff like that. Now I know there's not any welds here right now, but sometimes the rust can pit and you want to get some of the metal, a little bit of the metal away, to get some of those rust pits away. And if there's a bit of surface rust, then I can use the abrasive wheel and not take any metal off. I want to take as little metal off as possible because it'll make the panel weak and it won't be as strong anymore. And then it will rust faster and it will dent easier. And so you want to keep the metal as thick as possible for strength. So something you want to remember when doing spot repairs is you don't want to damage any areas that you're not working on. So this plastic molding down here, the door over here, fender on that side, the molding up here, we want to protect those areas. So we're going to do that. Okay, so I have some masking tape that I put around the area, and then I have some duct tape that I put along the bottom. That's where I'm going to be grinding. But I will open the door a bit when I'm grinding to get away from the molding, and I'm going to grind a little bit with the door open. Okay, so I finished grinding. I always try as much as possible to make this line sort of as straight as possible. It makes the feather edging a lot easier later, so that I don't take as much time taking away a jaggedy edge. Jaggedy, I mean kind of the paint goes up and down and you have little spots here and there. I try to keep it as straight as I possibly can. Then I also, when I grind, I try and make sure that I grind past the brown spots so that I don't see any brown above the underneath the paint. Okay, so always make sure I do that. That way there's no rust under the paint that I'm gonna miss. And so now I'm gonna sandblast. So I'm gonna be sandblasting, like I said before. So this sandblaster is a little spot blaster. It works really good. It's a little different than the others. Some of them don't have any kind of a bag. They just have like a little container at the top where the sand is in, and it blows and it goes everywhere. I like this one because it keeps the sand inside. You put this rubber right against the metal and you push, and then you pull the trigger and it'll blow a spot clean. The sand stays inside and then it comes back, and any dirt that flies off of here from the rust goes inside here as well. So it kind of recycles it a bit and reuses it, and it doesn't go flying everywhere, and it's a lot safer. So there you can see how much whiter and clear that got. Okay, so here you can see I cleaned it all up, sandblasted all the brown rust spots, and cleaned that all up. Oh boy. So I think someone is wanting to play here. Yeah, I think he wants me to throw it. What do you think? Yeah, he loves getting that ball. Okay, so I also took the abrasive wheel and I cleaned up the edge a little bit nicer so that it was going to be a little bit easier to feather edge. So now I'm going to feather edge it with my palm sander. Ooh, nice and close. Palm sander with 120 grit. Okay, so now I'm going to blow it off a little bit, get the dust away. So you can see what I did here. It's called feather edging. Tapered that paint edge where I was grinding before. I tapered it and made it smooth so you can't feel it with your hand. And so later after I paint it, you can't see a line there. So that's what I was doing. I was feather edging. It also helps now when I put fiberglass in these pits so that I don't put any fiberglass, or if I use putty or anything, that I don't put it over shiny paint. Now, I just wanted to mention, you don't always have to sandblast. You only have to sandblast if you have these pits. Then it's best to sandblast, okay? But if you don't have these pits and you just have a bit of surface rust, the abrasive wheel is enough. Okay, next step is fiberglass. So I have some fiberglass here. The green stuff is the fiberglass. It's called kitty hair. And the blue stuff is the hardener, so I have to mix that together really well so that it's one uniform color, so that when I put it on it will adhere properly to the surface and that it will get hard so I can sand it. Fiberglass is waterproof, that's why, and very strong and durable. That's why it's good to put into the pits or any holes that you may have from rust. Alright, so now that I have it mixed, got my rubber gloves on because I'm using product. And I'm just going to squeeze this fiberglass right into those pits as much as I can. Taper that edge so it's less sanding later. And I'll do the rest of it like that. And now we wait for it to dry. So here we have a similar situation, except just a couple of holes. And so I use the angle grinder, I ground the rust away, and it is kind of bent open. I'll hammer that down, so I'm going to sandblast it a little bit, and then I will hammer it back into place, and then fill it with fiberglass, just like I did on the other side, except I'll need a little bit more now to fill the holes. Okay, so what I've decided now is, because this is so weak and flimsy here, and I'd like to shove some fiberglass in between the joints here, and I'm actually going to just cut off this excess metal with a cut-off wheel. Very dangerous tool. Wear all your safety equipment, use it safely, be trained with it, and it's safe. But it cuts very fast. So all the safety equipment, and I will cut this off here. Okay, so you can see that works very quickly, and I gotta cut it really nice. Now I just gotta clean it, do a little bit more sandblasting, get that rust out of there, and then fiberglass it. or I can weld in a piece of metal, one of the two. Alright, so before I hammer these spots in too much, I'm going to spray some bare metal protection behind there so that it will slow down the rusting. It's really hard to say that it's going to stop the rusting forever, but we can slow it down so that it takes longer. So I'm going to spray some behind there, let it dry, and then I'll put some fiberglass in there. Okay, so it's a little cool right now, but I sprayed it. It's black. It's a little cool for that to dry quickly enough for my liking. I like to do everything really quickly, but I do like the light outside and being outside and the dogs here and stuff, so it's kind of a little more fun. So I was going to move in, but I'm going to leave it out. So now while the other door is drying, and while that is drying, one more thing I have to fix on this van are these chips on this back bumper. So I'll just take you through the steps of fixing a few spots here and there. So I'm going to tape it up, and I'm going to try to keep it so I'm painting just below here, this line. It's going to be a little tight, or if you can, right there. And but I'm going to try to sand all those little cracks and stuff away with 120 with my orbital sander, being careful not to sand any higher than I need to, because I want to keep the paint down and low. Alright, so that's what I'm going to be doing with my orbital sander, feather edging there. Okay, so I got it all sanded with 120, which is quite coarse. I could have gone a little bit finer, 150 or 180, but I'm in a hurry. And so now I'm going to go over it with 320 to make it a little bit smoother before I prime. Normally I don't do that over putty, but over plastic I will do that. Okay, so the fiberglass is dry on this side. I'm going to start sanding it shortly. So this is how we get a lot of work done in the shop. We work on more than one spot at a time, and something's drying, then we work on another spot. So that's dry. I'm going to sand it right away. I sand it here, and it's all ready to prime. And there I have some fiberglass on, waiting for that to dry. So while that's drying, I'm going to come back and I'm going to sand over here. Okay, so the fiberglass is really hard, and again, like I said, waterproof. And so I'm going to use 120 to sand the fiberglass down, and then I'm going to back sand this area with 320, and I'm going to prime within the scratches with the 320. So for now I'm going to sand with 120 to sand down the fiberglass. Okay, so I got the fiberglass sanded, and I sanded with 320, and that's called back sanding, that dull spot that you see further back. And I'll make a tape line, and then I'll prime, but I will not prime up to the tape, other than at the molding and at the bottom of the door. So what you've been seeing here is all corrosion protection. I've been protecting it so that it will not corrode or rust more. So very important, you get the rust taken away, you get the it all sandblasted and really clean, and then you put bare metal protection, which is that black one-step spray that I put on there. And then after that, then I let that dry really good, and then I sanded that a little bit, and then I back sanded, and then I put some fiberglass on, all to try to prevent the rust from coming back as much as possible. Okay, so I had a few pinholes in my fiberglass. Remember, the fiberglass was like a dark green. This is a lighter green. This is called metal glaze Evercoat. It's for, I had little dots, little pinholes in the fiberglass, which I forgot to take a picture of or a video for you guys. And so this metal glaze is very thin. It's just a thin layer to fill little pinholes and little imperfections. And so I put a thin little layer of that on. Same thing, you put hardener in it, and it dries, and you sand it. So while I'm waiting for that glaze to dry, kind of gotta wait. So I may as well start prepping for paint. So I want to start sanding this with a really fine smooth grit because I only want to put clear coat here and I want to blend it right here. I want to blend it right here with clear coat. I don't want to paint the whole door. So I want to use 800, a really fine grit, and I'll put base coat down here later, and then I'll put the clear coat over the whole thing, and then I'll be done. So I want to use a finer grit sandpaper right now, and I want to use a soft pad. I put the soft pad, it's a Velcro on mine, and so you put it on, it's soft and it won't sand through the edges as quickly. You can use a hard pad though, just have to be more careful. So I got it mostly sanded. Now I just want to do the edges with a gray Scotch pad. A gray Scotch pad is good for blending clear coat. Where you're going to be blending clear coat, it has a less of a scratch than a red or a maroon one. So here we want to use, because we're blending, we want to use the gray one. So I'm just going to scuff up the edges, and here where I'm going to blend the clear coat. Okay, so it's getting exciting. We're almost done, so I'm ready to prime now. And after the primer is dry, just let it dry overnight, and then it needs to be painted. Unless you have a heat lamp or something to dry it quickly, you can do that. But okay, so that's what it looks like, all sanded, ready to go. And I back sanded, all ready. So now I just gotta prime it. Once the primer's dry, then I can sand it and tape it and paint it. Okay, so now I'm going to wipe it with a wax and grease remover, get it all clean. Then I'm going to mask it up, tape it up with paper and tape, cover all the areas so I don't get primer on the rest of the vehicle at all, on all those 3 spots, and then I'm going to prime them all at once. Okay, so here I have it all masked up, far enough back so I don't prime up to the tape. And then of course right at the bottom where I have it masked up against some plastic that I don't want to get any primer on. And here is the other side. Okay, so I've got the primer mixed. I'm going to set my spray pattern, and then I'm going to spray. You want to be about 6 to 8 inches away with your pattern, and maybe about 4 inches wide. And with this specific spray gun, we want our air pressure to be at 27 pounds. 29, 27, 29. So we want to put 3 coats of primer on, good heavy wet coats. Alright, so now we got it primed. Now we got to tape up the surrounding area so we don't sand anything we don't want to sand, adjacent panels. And I'm going to do that on all 3 spots. And then I'm going to sand it. I'm going to start, you would block it with a sanding block with 400. Smaller spots, if it's a bigger spot, you would use 320 and then 400. And then after that, we would use the soft pad to get rid of the scratches. And so that's what we're going to do. So it's all taped up, ready for paint. It's not really ideal painting outside, but I don't have a booth at home, so that's the way it's going to be. Now I'll wipe it down, and there's no bare metal showing, so I don't have to worry about bare metal protection, corrosion protection, because I did that already with the primer. And now I'm just going to wipe it down, then I'm going to mix the paint, put base coat on, a couple of coats, and then clear coat. Okay, so I'm going to put on a second coat now. It's pretty much, well, it's a charcoal gray, but it looks black, and it'll pretty much cover in 2 coats, so that's all I'm going to need to do. Okay, so I don't think I showed it before, but I tacked it before I put base coat on. I'm going to tack it again now before I clear coat it. Tack rag is a little sticky cloth that gets the rest of the dust off. Tries to keep it as clean as possible. Alright, so I'm done. I pulled the plastic back a bit. Of course it's still wet and it has to dry. That's all shiny. The clear coat is the shiny stuff there. I just kind of blended out the clear there. That's a bit of a cheating way of not having to paint the whole entire panel. And I pulled that piece of foam tape off already so that the paint can just kind of flow down instead of leaving a line. Blended it up in there. That's why I left that little pocket there so the clear coat could blend up. Now hopefully no flies land in there. Nice smooth reflection. So there you have it, finished. Turn the van around so this side is in the sun. I don't know how you can see that. So normally here where I blended the clear coat, you would just have to polish that a little bit. Go back. So I'm going to show you how to polish out this little dry spot that you see right there. And I will tell you what that's from. That is from, I painted this bottom section here, fixed a rust spot. There was bubbles and rust right here, so I fixed that spot. And I did that in a different video, maybe you've seen it already. And then I just kind of blended the clear coat and everything kind of right there because I didn't want to paint the whole entire thing. Okay. And so that's why I just did that spot. So now I blended the clear coat. You can do many different things with polishing. You can shine up the paint if it's dull. You can buff out some scratches if they're not too deep. And you can take away these dry spots when you have blended your clear coat. So I will go through and show you the steps to do that. All right, so we're going to talk about some of the safety equipment we need to wear when we're polishing. Not too much, just safety glasses and some coveralls or a coat, so that you don't splash or splatter yourself with the polish when you're polishing. If you are in an enclosed area, you should also have a respirator on because breathing in the polish is not good for your lungs. All right, so I have the polish here. There's many different kinds of polish. This is a 3M polish. 3M has a polish step 1, 2, 3 and they're color coordinated. I don't have that system. What I have at home is just this kind of a home use polisher right here and some polish that I had left over. And so come on in closer and I'll show you how to do that. So we want to put a bit of this polish right on the spot where it's dry. Just a couple of small spots. You can use a little bit of water if your pad is dry. My pad is dry. I'm going to try it without water, and if I do find that it's not doing too much, then I am going to get some water and put it on there. So first thing I want to do is kind of rub it around a little bit, smear it around a little bit. It shouldn't splatter, and then I'll just turn my machine on and I'll just keep moving back and forth. And I want to do that until the shine is where I want it. So right now the polish is just kind of smearing, it's kind of working, doing its thing. Some polishers have different speeds. This one only has one speed, but some polishers have different speeds. When you're doing the first step, you want to go as slow as possible so the polish can do its work. So there you have it, polished and done.